beekeeping answers. Questions from my friend who's imminently starting beekeeping, as well as yours if you leave them in the comment section down below. Today's question is, how do I keep Winnie the Pooh and Piglet out of my hive boxes? Now, he is located in Texas. I don't know what they have in Texas. I know that they have pigs. I don't know if they have bears in Texas, but let's assume that they do. What I do, and I think this is applicable to most places in the United States. Well, let's start with what most people do. Most people put a brick on top of their hive, and that's usually enough to keep the top cover on. So you boxes, inner cover, top cover, and usually the fit is close enough that like the wind can't just pick it up and rip it off if you put a brick on top of it. I go to the next level, and that's because I started out beekeeping with an unfenced plot, and I oftentimes would concern myself with like the neighbor's cattle getting into them, because cattle like to like rub on things, and if they knock over a hive in the middle of the summer, it's not really that big a deal, and you might do some damage to the colony, but you basically reassemble and it's fine. If they do that in the middle of winter, the sucker's dead. So what I do is I start a base and then I ratchet strap. So everything starts with your base and what you use. This is a working farm, and I don't know if any of you have farms that are active, but concrete blocks are not something that we purchase around here. They just kind of come from the earth. They're just everywhere because there's been so many buildings that have been torn down over the years that there's just concrete blocks everywhere. So when I start a new base, I literally go to one of the locations where a building used to be, and I just dig for a little bit until I find some concrete blocks. If you are concerned with animals like bears and things like that, then you need to have a heavy base and interconnect them. So what a lot of folks will do is they'll put concrete blocks out, and they'll put like fence posts through them, through the holes in the side, and that links multiple setups together. So you basically got a concrete block on either side, and those fence posts through it. So now you've got the weight, and then the weight of the colonies on top of that. And depending on how long your fence posts are, you can put one concrete block in the center. You get what's going here. And you can junction those together and then ratchet strap to that. We don't have bears around here, so I'm not really super concerned about that. I'm not worried about an intelligent animal really getting into my colonies and tearing them apart. I'm worried about a dumb cow trying to scratch its nose and it weighs 1,200 pounds and knocking it over. So what I have elected to do instead is I have piles of concrete blocks that I have established, and then I ratchet strap to that big pile. So it's more difficult for the animal to push those over in either direction versus trying to defeat an animal that's intelligently trying to get in there, right? The ratchet strap does not matter whether it goes forward to back or front or side to side. The bees don't really care. As long as the entrance is open, they don't really care. So I would say that if you're concerned about bears and pigs and things like that, then you should probably put them a little bit higher up than, specifically for the pigs. Because the pigs, your average razorback, only stands, a foot off the ground. So to combat the pigs, you would put them higher, but if you're worried about bears, then you would put them lower. So it really depends on which species you're actually targeting. Personally speaking, because I'm not worried about either of those things, I do 2 concrete blocks, as in 2 high. And that seems to be sufficient. I turn those blocks on their side. so that the holes go through the side, and then that allows me to run the ratchet straps through them that way. And that's usually what keeps it down. Now, the reason I started doing that, actually, I mentioned cattle, but what induced me to do that was we had a really big windstorm, and I was concerned about them blowing off. Now, it was summer, but everybody would get drenched. So I was really concerned about that, and so I did all of my colonies and all of my wife's colonies in ratchet straps, and it's just kind of stuck ever since. It is a little bit more of a pain in the ass to get into the colony when you've got ratchet straps on them. And if they grow to sufficient size, then of course you've got, multiple ratchet straps put together to hold them down. But when it comes to sealing the hive, particularly in the winter, I find that it is superior to be able to put that pressure on it and kind of mash that propolis seal that they've already built so that it's not going anywhere. That's my take. Your mileage may vary.